Where do we start? Let's go back to the beginning.
I've just realized that fruit snacks are not a good snack to snack on while speaking to an audience. All right, we are here to tell the entire story of how the Golden Nugget even came to be. Trevor's here to help me tell it.
It's a long story.
It starts like when I got out of roofing.
Yeah.
I ended up taking over this yard. I bought the assets of a tow company, took over the rent on the yard, and Ed was living here. He was renting a space from the owner of this yard, and I got to know Ed.
And Ed likes to tell stories.
And one day we were out. Somebody had an LJ20 out on display, and Ed says, "I've got one of those. It's at my claim in California." And I'm like, "Really? What's the deal with it?" He says, "Oh, it got trapped behind a landslide." And that was the end of the story. I'm like, "We should go get it." And he's like, "Now, you know what's really hard for me is not doing this. I need something to fidget with." No, that's not going to work. All right. So years went by. I would hit Ed up every 6 months or so, just to ask him about it and try to get details. Because first of all, not only did he say it was not worth getting, he said there's no way to get it. There was a big rock slide. So here's what the story was. When Ed first started working this claim, he took his Rokon in there and he rode it along that ditch bank.
I used to ride my bike on this trail before we built this one.
Oh, yeah?
The Rokon, right on the edge, all the way down. Had a good trail all the way.
And that's how he got down there to his mine. So at Ed's mining claim, they had built a cabin and they'd hauled everything in there on a Rokon through a trail from the top. But it was really dangerous because Ed has all these stories about people wrecking on that trail and then taking like weeks to heal up after the crash.
Didn't a guy lay there for like 3 days or something?
Yeah,
They
in the
could get him
spring.
out?
Yeah. And that was the guy that built the cabin.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, this is super boring. I'm trying to just tell you why. How did this even come to be? So they had this cabin that was built. There was multiple claims along the river, and they all got along really good. And they would get into this cabin with the Rokon on the ditch bank. And then Ed said that he wanted a bigger vehicle to get in there to haul his stuff in and out, so they wouldn't have to make multiple trips. So he bought this Suzuki actually from Hurricane. That's just a coincidence. It's just part of the story we found later that he actually purchased it from a gentleman here in Hurricane.
Also, when Ed got it, it was wrecked, and that's why he got it, because he got it for very cheap, and that's why that had the sheet metal side and the wood door.
So he got a good deal on it. He was just going to thrash it on his claim. He used it, as far as I know, he used it one summer, and at the end of the summer, they parked it back there by the cabin.
Yeah.
And he winterized it, covered it with a tarp, got it ready for the winter. And the next spring when they got there, a massive rock slide had come down. It came clear down to the river, wiping out 60 or 80 yards of road.
Yeah.
So this is information we're getting from Ed. So we decided we needed to go and get eyes on it. We kind of put a little party together. I grabbed Paul from Fab Rats and Trevor, who wasn't feeling well. Actually, you were feeling fine till the day we left.
Yeah. I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, I'm just not feeling right. And then when we got back, I was out for like 4 or 5 days.
So we flew out of St. George. We flew into Reno. We rented a car. Ed was already out there with Fred. So there's a big, like a diplomatic side to this story. We had to play nice with 2 different property owners and, I don't know, a handful of miners, 4 or 5 of them. I never actually met them. Fred kind of took the role of the liaison between me and my team and then property owners and the gold miners. They worked out a deal. We can't take any excavating equipment down there. They don't want us messing anything up. They don't want us blowing anything up, or they don't want us cutting down any big trees or any of that stuff. They just basically clear a path, figure out how you can get it out as surgically as possible. So Fred put that all together, and that was years in the making. So to even go down and get eyes on it was really was a lot of work.
Kind of made us feel special, though.
Oh yeah, it did.
We were part of the group.
So they picked a weekend, and when all the miners were gone. So we met Ed and Fred there in Grass Valley, and then we headed up into the Sierra Nevada mountains to the gold claim.
Well, we're starting down now. Down here about a half a block, my 65 Chevy caught on fire. The plastic fuel pump broke.
Oh.
And man, I had some gunny sacks. I had a heck of a time getting it out. I thought I was gonna burn the whole floor thing. Anyway, I had to walk clear the pavement because there's no cars. Then I walked from the pavement. There's one car went by and he didn't stop. Clear the store way down there. And I called my friend and he come up and got me. I got parts, brought it back, fixed it. It was okay. Wiring, distributor cap, burned all that up.
It was amazing scenery. The river was crystal clear, and it was deceiving how deep it got. Because you and Paul were going to walk up the river because it looked fairly shallow.
Me and Paul are going to walk up there and look at that.
We'll walk up that way. That's okay. Don't walk up there. It gets too deep.
That's okay.
You're like, it can't be more than 2 feet deep.
7 steps later, we were up to our waist.
Yeah.
Oh my, that does get deep, doesn't it? Oh my. Whew. Ed, you were right.
But it was a very pretty area. It was wonderful to be there.
So what happened on that trip? There's a lot of stuff on that. Eating gummy bears here.
So we scouted the route. There's only really one route to go in and bring it back out. We walked that route. Matt and Paul started coming up with a plan in their heads that we would later use to get it out with.
Like, you just kind of got a feel for it. Like, you're not solving every single problem. You're just like, oh, this is going to be hard to get through, but I think we can do it. We even called some audibles on the actual recovery. But anyway, on the way out of there, Fred told us that there would be a really unique and interesting way for us to drive, and we would come out in this town called Washington. And so we kind of listened to them, and they're like old school. They couldn't show me a pen on my phone or anything. So they've got these big foldable maps. They had this big old thing folded out.
But it was like 50 years old.
Yeah. So we headed off the general direction they said, and we made some turns that we probably shouldn't have. And we ended up on a road that was getting more and more and more primitive.
And on Google Maps, it was a big black space. There was like no topographical information for it.
No, there wasn't.
Drove into the abyss.
We did. And since we decided we probably would be okay and we wouldn't die, we just kept going. We ended up having to ford a river, and we made it through. And then we popped out like in Washington.
Yeah.
But we definitely didn't go the way that Fred
Oh, yeah.
told us to go. It was not correct. But we saw some crazy, amazing country. We only had to backtrack for like 30 minutes.
And we were in a Jeep Liberty, and everyone was giving us the weirdest looks. That we had that.
Oh, yeah.
We had it.
So the people that we rescue on a regular basis, we were totally being those people. That was pretty much it. It was just a pretty quick turn and burn trip. We flew out one day. We got up in the morning. We went and looked at everything. We drove back to
our Airbnb, and then
flew out.
Flew out the next morning.
Yeah. So that would have been in the summertime. Was it like early summer? So then we had to wait till the miners were all done with their operation. They gave us strict instruction. They didn't want any of their equipment filmed or any of them filmed. Like they're pretty protective of their craft. So we of course we were like, okay, not a problem. And we were very careful not to do that. But they wanted to be completely gone when we started, which only gave us a tiny window till the snow started flying.
Well, yeah, we had to figure out what crew to take, what time to do it, because Paul had a lot going on. Matt always has a lot going on. So making the stars align was a chore in itself.
Yeah, and we had this tiny window, and we had to get everybody on it. It was good to meet Fred. I'd met Fred a couple times. He's been here to the yard and stuff. But after we went there with Fred and told him some of what our plans were, what our capabilities were, then he trusted, like he basically left it up to Ed. Like, if Ed says they're okay to go, then I'm okay with it. So that was cool. Yeah. And we needed a big enough crew to do it, but we didn't want to overwhelm it. Ed said that was the most people that have ever been down there at once in his entire life. And that was a group of what, 10?
Yeah. Well, and he said because of the truck and trailer that we had, there'd never been a vehicle so large down there either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we should have listened to Ed on that one. We'll get to that. All right. So now the time is, we've got to put this team together to go down and get this. So I need people that Ed knows and trusts. I need people that are capable of the work that needs to be done, and just that we wouldn't have any trouble with it, could take care of themselves. So we had Paul come down. He was already in. We needed, what did we get from our team? We got Trevor and Lizzie and Tucker.
Eric.
Eric's been a good friend of Ed's for a long time. And then we brought Tom in as our camp chef. This is our camp chef, and this is our camp chef.
Oh, how are we going to tell us apart? They're both making bacon.
And he did everything. He was way more than a chef.
Doing it all today, man. We don't even need anybody else here. We just need Tom.
So Tom's a civil engineer now, too. What is it? What is that, Tom?
No, I'm not a geologist.
Oh, come on, Tom.
He's also a singer?
Oh, because
Like a farrier?
you're the ferryman. Oh, now you're a farrier?
Oh,
Oh, wow, Tom.
He's way more than just a pretty pumpkin.
So we ate good. Tom fed us well, very, very well.
And that's what Ed. See, Ed's not a fool. Like Ed. Well, I'm like, Ed, you don't have to bring any food. We'll take care of it. And he had his stash of beans and rice and all this stuff. And he, like, one night, like the first night we were there, he's like organizing his food. And I'm like, dinner's just about ready. And he's like, is there enough for me? And we're like, there's more than enough. And anyway, he just kept eating. And he was like, oh, I've never ate so good at mining camp. Nobody has ever eaten so good at mining camp. Yeah, that trip out there, if you've never driven across Nevada, it's like driving across the surface of the moon.
So there's the extraterrestrial highway, which we were on. And then there's also the world's loneliest highway and then a couple other ones out there. And you can go hours without seeing another car.
How many cars have we passed in the last 2 hours?
One.
Yeah, you can go hours driving 80 miles an hour without ever seeing another sign of life. You might see like a donkey out there.
Yeah, and you have to plan your gas stops.
Yes, we did not properly do that. So we got halfway across there, and I noticed that Blue Steel was getting pretty low, and I started hunting for gas stations. Is that Rachel?
You get loud gas.
And there was one coming up like in 10 miles. I'm like, we can make it to that. But it was just a gas station. They didn't have any diesel. This super nice lady. So we're here in Rachel. They've got gas pumps but no diesel. But this very nice lady is going to help us because she might have some diesel.
That's true.
So we're going to go check it out.
All right.
She's like, oh yeah, I carry diesel here for that reason. But it's at her house. And then she just left us in charge of the store.
Yep.
She might be giving us diesel, but Matt's got to work for it.
Yep, we're putting in some work. She's like, here, you guys watch the store. She got in her car and drove away. She brought back a 5-gallon can of diesel. Oh, wow. What was your name?
Fawn.
Fawn.
What's your name?
My
Matt?
name's Matt. And we poured that in, and she charged us like below market rate. I felt terrible. I'm like, we're willing to pay for this, but she was super nice. She's amazing.
She would not take extra.
Nope, she wouldn't. Thank you, Fawn.
Thank you, Matt.
You're the best.
Very nice. No, thank you for cleaning up my garbage, too.
So that was really our only gas mishap. Oh, no, it wasn't.
88, 99, 102. I only got 5 miles left.
Ed was afraid.
Ed, we were trying to make it into
Tonopah?
Tonopah. All right, so we're getting close to Tonopah, and his fuel light comes on, and he wants to turn around and go back to a
'cause
gas station.
He insisted, turn around. But he insisted that the light coming on meant he only had 20 miles. We needed to go 10 miles past what he thought it could go.
But with Eric's vast experience with fuel lights, Eric bet
Ed, $20.
Yeah, bet that they would make it just fine, which they did. Oh, there's the gas station.
It's got diesel. Yes, woohoo!
And Ed paid up.
I'm paying Eric his money.
We made a bet that we were going to make it to the gas station. He bet that we weren't.
We did.
And Ed does not give up money easily.
Nope.
They were it was a little argument going on in Ed's vehicle.
Yeah. So Ed's this crazy adventurer, but he also likes, like, he's very thoughtful and he likes like sure things. He wasn't sure they were going to make it. He wasn't too happy about it. I mean, all in good fun, but
he was all smiles when we made it though.
It was heated fun.
Yeah.
So we all love Eric here, and we've known Eric for a long time. He's a good friend of ours, and it's fun to tease him about Mavericks because he loves Maverick. He loves like convenience stores in general, but Maverick, that's the one. I've been teasing him over the years quite a bit about it, and we got into Reno. It's been 10 hours since we've seen a Maverick, and we were looking on the map, and I just happened to notice there was a Maverick about 2 miles ahead, and so I radioed over to Eric, and I said, hey, are your Spidey senses tingling? And he's like, are you talking about the Maverick that's up ahead? Oh, that was funny. I love stuff like that. So it's dark. We're driving in, and I'm trying to remember how bad this road is going in. Like, we took a Jeep Liberty down there. How hard could it be? So we're here at the point where the road starts to get really narrow. Just turns into a real trail. Ed's a little bit concerned about the size of our trucks to come down there. We're pulling trailers, both me and Paul. But since we're basically children, we want to give it a try. So we headed down there with the trailers, and Ed's like, you're going to want to leave your trailers here. And we're like, no, Ed, I think we got it. We're going to drive all the way in. We should have listened to Ed. that trailer tire off the ground.
Yes.
It was a long and treacherous drive in, and it wasn't until we were headed out after the job that we realized.
Yeah, it was pitch dark on the way in, so we the only thing we could see was what the flashlight was illuminating. So
Yeah. Ugh. We just about tipped the banana over and the trailer, like the whole thing over.
yeah, you could see the tire marks on the way out where we went off the road.
The trail.
Yeah,
You called it
the
a road.
trail.
You accidentally called it a road. There was a part where it's just so narrow that the fender hit a tree on the side. The road was sloped, and so when I'd back up, the trailer would slide further. Then you pull forward, it'd slide further. So every move we made it hook even worse. And then I think we had to get Paul on the back with a winch or a rope. I don't know. And he pulled it. Like we had to pull against each other and drag the trailer sideways. And it was like.
That's when he got Tucker with the horn.
Good one, Paul.
Yeah, it took chainsaws and winches and ropes. It took us a long time to get down there. We were all itching to get there because it had been a super long trip, but we made it.
What was that drive? 10 hours?
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, so we got there. We started set up camp. Well, we just set up camp and we kind of went to bed. But I guess we ate.
Yeah, Tom got right on dinner and we kind of relaxed.
So Tucker brought a giant tent he calls the Taj Mahal, and I shared it with him. And everyone took all the good spots, and we were.
This is crazy. Are you going to talk about the wind?
Yeah. So
this is insane. True.
How was your night?
Good morning. It was windy. I thought someone was trying to break in because the wind was rattling all the zippers and everything. And then the wind was trying to pick up the tent and roll me out of my sleeping bag.
Did you hear any wind last night?
No.
Tucker knows. Tucker knows.
I'll have to interview Tucker.
We got pushed a little bit closer to the river. So we set up. Everything seemed fine. But all night, the wind was blowing our tent. And like it got some of the stakes out. I was on the wind side, and I was just getting rolled off my sleeping pad.
Tucker, come up here. I need you up here.
I'm Tucker, and I can't use my voice.
So Robbie and his team put together this book that chronicles the Golden Nugget, the rescue, the recovery, and the restoration. It is an amazing book. I've caught Ed looking at it quite a bit. Just really clear pictures in it. I think it's really neat that Robbie put this together. So if you want your own copy of this book, you can go to RobbieLayton.com and pick yourself up a copy. I think there's a limited number. We got to get our own copies, Ed.
Yeah, I'd like one.
I'm going to get you 5.
Check out the link in the description.
This is so good. We brought Tucker in. So remember, the rest of us had nothing but the most peaceful, quiet night's sleep. And then when we woke up in the morning, we had to listen to these two bickering about what happened the night before.
Yeah, we get up. We're like, can you guys believe that wind last night? We couldn't get any sleep.
And we thought you guys were messing with us because you're like, there was no wind.
It's like, how did you guys miss that?
Yeah, I'm sleeping out in the open. I'm just no tent, nothing.
You're in the bed of your truck.
Yeah. So the same thing, like they're thinking we're messing with them, and I'm thinking that they're like got some inside joke about some prank they were playing on each other.
And at some points, it was almost like somebody was like outside shaking the tent.
And you've got to realize the distance from like the next closest person to them was probably me, and it was like 50 feet or 60 feet. It wasn't very far. Everybody was within 100 feet of each other.
Yeah.
It was crazy because I would just step over this, like down the bank, and boom, you get hit with the wind. It was nuts.
It's a very miserable night.
So then, after that restless night's sleep for 2 of us and peaceful for the rest of us, we just got after it. We had a job to do.
Boy, did we get after it. We have limited batteries. I mean, we're not so limited anymore, but for that job, we had like 6, maybe 8 batteries.
And that was all we had. We took everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had all of our equipment, and it was just going nonstop. Like,
when I drove up there, we drove up and looked at that ditch, because that's what the road is. It's an old ditch that they used for hydraulic mining. So that ditch was what they'd made into the road that the Suzuki fit in. And we had the banana there, and we're looking, and like Lizzie's touching both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not going to work. Oh, well, here we go. And we just drove it. It somehow fit. Well, no, it didn't fit. Yeah, it somehow mostly fit.
We had to make it fit.
Yeah, it had to fit. We had to do this.
But it took, 3 hours to get 200 yards.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. So one thing that was going on there, we had Paul and Eric that were trying to spot me. And the thing about Paul is Paul's kind of a like, did you die spotter? Like, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. And then you flop on your side and you're like, you told me to keep coming. And he's like, yeah, but did you die?
It's gonna hit.
Hard passenger.
It's gonna hit.
Keep going.
And Eric's more of a like, whoa, 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 you're about to lift a tire. And like, he's way more cautious.
Let's hear it.
If I just start moving.
Wait just a second.
So they kind of started butting heads about it, and I got tired of it, and I just started ignoring both of them and just going. And every time we'd hit something, what would I say?
Robbie will fix it.
Robbie will fix it. And he did. Robbie fixed it. So, yeah, we still made better time than I thought. I was expecting to make it.
Well, back to the cameras, we were barely hanging on with batteries.
Right.
Like, because you would not take breaks.
I don't take breaks.
No, he doesn't take breaks. So we worked from sun up to sundown the first day.
We made it all the way in, though.
Yeah.
See, I was thinking, because we'd planned a couple of extra days that we didn't use, because I didn't know how fast we were going to go. So even though it was arduous and a ton of work, all of a sudden we were just at the river. Mm-hmm. And this is something, a little bit of generational difference between Ed and the rest of us. But this was what was happening. This is a dynamic that was happening here, especially Eric. Eric is always eating. Eric has snacks and he has drinks, and you never catch Eric without snacks and drinks.
And that's why he never passes a Maverick, because he's got to have his snacks and drinks.
Yep, he's always restocking. And Ed is totally old school, man. You get up, you eat breakfast, you go to work. You work a couple hours, you sit down, you take a break, you drink a Pepsi, and you go back to work. And then you stop for lunch. Anyway, he's very structured that way. And so he's always teasing us about how we're just sipping.
So he pulls Eric aside and he says,
This eating all day's got to stop.
Oh, man. That's, incidentally, that's how everybody started thinking that we liked peanut M&Ms, was because we got stuck on a job on East Zion. And I'm like, we don't have anything to eat. And Eric's like, you don't. And he pulls out all these peanut M&Ms. Yep. There's poison oak everywhere. We're having to be careful of that. We forgot about that.
Yeah, when we ate lunch, Lizzie put
All
lunch
the food.
right by the poison oak.
In it. Like, we're like reaching in between it to get the cantaloupe.
The dirt-covered cantaloupe.
Yeah.
So it felt good. We got in there in the first day. I didn't think we were going to do that. Paul's always optimistic. Sometimes he's wrong. This time he was right. I'm going to have to give him a point for it. We made it. We got in there. So then we walked back.
There goes Ed.
I can talk to him about dinner. He said you're finally allowed to eat.
I can eat
Yeah.
all night long.
Finally put in a hard day's work.
So we get up early the next morning. Tom just makes this amazing breakfast. We eat our breakfast, and we head on in there.
Yeah.
So we hook up to it. The axles are locked. It's all froze up. We drag it for a little bit. We put Eric in it.
Holy what?
He was not happy.
Oh, he was not happy, but he was trying to keep a good attitude.
You should see all the rat stuff that's falling on me.
That's the best bad attitude I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So a lot of people commented that Eric reminds them of Jonathan Winters, and I'm 100% with you on that one. Also the captain from Gilligan's Island. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we drug it a couple hundred feet, and one of the axles broke loose. Drug it a few more feet, and the other axle broke loose. And now there's kind of steering. There's no brakes. All the tires are flat, but they're those really stiff bias ply tires. So
it was at this point that we decided to incorporate the pumpkin.
yeah, we brought the pumpkin to just randomly put it there for something like a little Easter egg for people to spot. Lots of people spotted it. Most people understand it. Like, they're like, oh, okay, I get it. This is an Easter egg for us. Some people are like, what's the deep meaning of the pumpkin?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
So it is a pumpkin that Tom grew at home. It came from his very own pumpkin patch.
And he gifted it to me. And to show appreciation, I brought it with us on the trip. And so it just kind of got planted.
And that thing was still looking good.
Like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I think Ed threw it out. I was really excited for it. It was doing good. No, not, it was starting to soften up, but
yeah.
it wasn't rotten or anything.
There was only like 2 mushy spots.
Yeah, but I think Ed deemed it
So what
rotten.
we still got this thing for?
And threw it out. We had to get a stand-in for it.
Yeah, so the pumpkin in the reveal video was
Is a tribute. It's not the greatest pumpkin in the world. It's just a tribute. So, Okay, so we're on the way back. There's this really difficult spot, sharp turn. We had to mess with that for a little bit, and we got it around the turn, and now we're down at the river, and it's going to be easy going for, I don't know, 50 yards or so. But that 50 yards leads us right into this just awful rock bed, and we weren't 100% sure the Jeep was going to make it back through. Everybody's kind of like, now we've got a goal, like, hey, we can get this done today and we can leave tomorrow. And we'd done so much road building the day before that we were just like kind of done with road building. And we're like, I think we can sneak the Jeep through here. What happens if we just pull the Golden Nugget down the river? Now, a lot of people said that we did that as a ploy to get YouTube views. And we're not idiots. We're like, oh, people are going to love or hate this. But it was really like, if we weren't YouTubing and we needed to get it out of there, this is the choice we would have made. And we made a massive mistake. We should have kept a lead rope on it, and we didn't.
So yeah,
that's pretty much Tom's fault. He should have done that.
But the current was faster than the winch could reel in.
Yeah. So it just, like, it had a clear path. It wasn't going to hit anything, and it went in and sunk, and then it just shot straight across and got behind that rock.
And it got hung up.
And by this time, all the batteries were dead in the radios, and communication was bad. We did some damage. We won't talk about that because Robbie will fix that. But what about the drone? Let's talk about the drone.
Yeah.
So they were planning this out, and I was just kind of buzzing around getting shots, and I was getting low on the battery, so I set it to hover on you and Eric.
Yeah.
And I walk over to the Jeep to get some batteries, and I put the remote down, and I'm thinking what had happened because I took my jacket off and I set it next to the remote, and I think that's what hit the toggle.
Because all of a sudden it just goes, shoo, just straight into the cliff.
Yeah, so
And
it hit
I
the
look over
cliff.
there and I see it fall down the cliff, and I'm like, "What the heck, Tucker?" And you're just like, "What just happened?"
And see, I heard it because it's just hovering, and then all of a sudden it changes pitch because it just jets sideways.
Yeah.
And it just smashes into the cliff and cartwheels into the water. Well, not quite.
yeah.
It went into the water, didn't it?
It flopped, and then it was half in, half out, but the camera went into the water
Went
first.
under the water.
And you can
Yeah.
watch the lens fill up with water, and then it goes
Then
dark.
it goes out.
I started stripping down to swim over to get it, but then Eric's like, "I think we can get to it
Through the
go
poison
there,
hole.
and then and go across and come down the cliff."
He spider monkeyed right over there.
Yeah, so we went and fished it out, got it fixed. It still flies good.
That was the end of the drone for that trip, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the most important part, I was so devastated.
Yeah, Tucker was saving that portion of the recovery for the drone.
We made it
didn't
work.
happen.
Boy.
But then we had another issue because after we had gotten back and I was putting it together, the shot from Eric and Trevor's perspective of the Golden Nugget going into the water didn't
No
have audio. So it was like 2:00 in the morning. I'm freaking out because the most important shot of the video didn't have any audio. So I'm watching the clip, and Trevor turns the camera back on himself, and I see Eric standing there with his phone. So I called him, and he answered.
Right? He's a tow guy.
Do you still have that clip? He's like, yeah. Or however he
That was
sounds.
perfect. That sounded just like him.
And so he came over, and it took like a couple hours because it's like a Samsung S.
It's a potato.
6 or something.
Yeah. These
Like a
everyone here
15-year-old
uses
phone.
Apples except for me and Eric. And Eric has never offloaded anything off of his phone to a PC, and Tucker doesn't know how to do it.
No, it took us a while to figure it out, but I was able to get the audio from that and line it up.
Yeah, that was. So if you're wondering what it's like to be a YouTuber, it's just never ending losing audio and losing clips. That's what it's like. And so when you're like, oh, you didn't show this thing, or what are you hiding? Oh, yeah.
If you like being constantly stressed out, be a
Yeah, YouTubing's for you. So now the JL20 has gone down and wedged in that rock. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Where the Jeep is in a bad spot. We've got to get a hold of that rope, and we've got to get it pulled back over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, full disclosure, I'm like, Lizzie's going to get wet. There's no way she's getting that rock without getting wet. So I told her, I said, just jump in and swim over there. And she's like, well, I'm going to build a bridge. So we got her some sticks, and I don't know.
Oh, that's sketch.
You know the J hooks we got for the back of the trailer?
Put that one up so you have a handrail.
I went to find some longer logs, but they were already almost done. So I ran back there to make sure I got the shot.
And that water's cold. That water is 32.5 degrees. So she goes in and she starts swimming to shore. And I'm like, you're already wet. You might as well complete the mission. Some people said that was insensitive, but it's just logic. I mean, you're already wet.
Yeah.
Let's complete it. So she swam to the rock, reached over, she got the rope, she flipped it over, and then she laid there in the sun, kind of warming up for like 15 minutes or however long it took us to pull that out of there. And then we got it around the rock, it got the Jeep back down there, it got the rope thrown back over, and then she had to jump back in.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so excited because we got the golden nugget done. So we're down there, like it's out. And she just comes running up, and I'm like, oh, Lizzie, your lips are blue. So we loaded her. I think I gave her my coat, loaded her on the four-wheeler. Paul took her back to camp. He's got this big tent and this big, massive buddy heater. Yeah. We just left Lizzie there, and like, just stay there till you warm up. And she was back like in 30 minutes.
Yeah. She just changed and came right back.
Part of this video that we just weren't able to capture the craziness of it was the climb out of the river up to the ditch. I don't feel like the cameras at all caught what it's like, how steep that is, and how perilous it is. So that's where Ed tumbled on the dynamite.
Yeah, so Ed uses a rope to climb that area.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's way better with the rope. It's kind of treacherous.
It's a treacherous trail, and it's not wide enough for the Jeep. And we drove the Jeep down it, and then going up it, I thought it would be better going up it, but it wasn't. And what made me even realize how bad it was is the LJ is like 2.5 feet narrower than the Banana. And I'm looking back there, and that thing's hanging off the edge every direction. That was sketchy. I wish we could have shown that better. But that was when Ed talks about doing cartwheels on the Rokon with a box of dynamite. That's the spot that he did it in. So we got up in the trail. So there's a spot where there's this tree. I can't get between the tree and the bank. I had to drive around it coming in. And so going out, we just pulled up to it. I drove around the tree. And when I say I just drove around the tree, another one of the most sketchy parts of this, because it's a vertical fall on the right. Getting in and out of the ditch is it would be pretty easy to just pop over, be on your side in the ditch.
We got some pretty cool pictures of that.
Yeah. So we got through that. Then we pulled out. But man, if I could get you to understand the pressure that just flew off of my shoulders when we pulled out on that road, like just out of that, it just all of a sudden opened up and we were out. We did it. We had the golden nugget in tow and we were out of there.
We didn't even break for lunch that second day, right? We just finished it up and then we went back and
after we rallied that
finally
thing up to
relaxed.
the top.
Yeah, we ran.
I drove that up a little too fast.
It was fun. Other than there's no cushions on the seats, so it's just you and bare metal with all those bumps.
Yeah. So we got it out of there. We went back. That was just a joyous evening of
it was very relaxing.
Eating as much of whatever food was left over because we had enough food for at least one more full day.
Mm-hmm. Well, you want to talk about the drive back?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, let's hear about the drive back.
So Matt and Tom stayed.
We stayed back with Ed. We've got a really fun secret mission coming up. You're not going to want to miss it. We scouted out for it. I guess I can say it. There's a lost mine up there, and Ed thinks he knows where it is. We're going to find it.
Matt and Tom stayed back, and I was with them on the way out. So on the way back, that means I had to jump in with Paul, which put 3 of us in the backseat of his pickup, which is very, very uncomfortable.
It's
like an 06, isn't it?
06 Dodge, and it's a 4-door, but it's more like an extra cab.
Yeah. No leg room. It was Tucker, so that's like 1.5 people. Yeah. Lizzie, that's like 2 people. And then me, just crushed back there.
I think the only thing that saved our sanity on that trip home was we had a package of straws.
Yeah, because we stopped to get something to eat, and they didn't give us straws.
Yeah, so we had to go buy some straws.
So we had this big pack of bendy straws.
So Trevor was sitting all the way on the other side. I'm sitting right behind Eric, and Trevor starts to build this massive straw. He ran it down under the floor to me, and then I built it up and stuck it into Eric's ear. And Trevor would just blow in his ear the whole way home. And he would get so bad. He got so mad he wouldn't share his snacks.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's pretty mad for Eric.
And he's got the front seat, so you're pestering him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, and Lizzie comes from a very large family. and personal space kind of doesn't exist. So Lizzie's always interesting to travel with.
Yeah.
Because if there's 3 of you in the back seat of a truck and Lizzie's in the middle and you drop off one of the outside people,
She stays in the
she
middle.
stays in the middle. She doesn't see any sense in moving. And so being packed in the back of a truck with Lizzie is, I guess it's just a thing you have to deal with.
You just have to accept it.
She grew up in a family like the Crudes.
Sleep on top of
You
each
sleep
other.
in a human sleep pile. All right, so now we're back. So this is a part where people get a little bit confused. Like, what was Ed's expectations? So Ed didn't really think, like we'd talked about trying to get it running, but Ed wasn't like really sure it was going to happen, nor did he really like push to have it done. But when we got back, Ed asked, he's like, where's the golden nugget? I said, oh, Paul's got it out at his place. He's going to see if he can get it running. He's going to drain all the water out of all the axles and stuff, whatever, whatever's going on with it. So Ed was okay with that for a couple of months. And then he started asking about it. Like, has Paul got it running yet? I'm like, oh, Paul's been busy and he's been working on stuff. Meanwhile, this whole time we've been like, we're trying to think of what's the best thing to do here with this thing. Is it just get it back to Ed as like a piece of yard art, or is it going to be best to get it running for him? And we talked about different, like keep the drivetrain except for swap the motor, or get a motor running for it, or do a whole drivetrain swap. And it kind of evolved from there. I would talk to Ed, and I would talk to Ed's son about like what would Ed want. So we kind of got input that way. And Ed's not really a car guy or a motorhead. He doesn't really get into all that stuff, but he does like owning the stuff. He likes reminiscing about it. He likes the function of things. So he's the kind of guy that would buy a brand new truck and then like weld a rack to the roof.
Yeah.
Keep his shovel
It's all
up there.
about practicality. Too.
Yeah. This was an interesting time. There was a whole bunch of work to be done. We had to figure out how to do it. We had to do it without Ed knowing about it. We had to do it fast enough that we could get it back to him before he got super suspicious. Because if Paul wasn't going to do anything with it, Ed just would want it back here, and we could do nothing with it here, and at least he could look at it and show it to people. So that was the biggest problem.
Yeah, then Ed starts looking for motors for it. He's like, oh, there's a guy up here. He's got a motor. Maybe we could throw that in there.
So this whole time, so Paul's got it. We buy that Suzuki Sidekick for the drivetrain.
Yeah, and so Ed had a ton of questions about that. When I pulled that into the yard, he's like, what's that for? And I didn't want to really lie to him. So I'm like, we picked it up for Paul because he wanted it. But then
we're doing vehicle swaps all the time. None of this is weird for Ed to have like vehicles come in and out.
Yeah, but it went up to Paul's. They pulled the motor and drivetrain out of it. And then like 2 days later, it shows back up. So then Ed has a million more questions. He's like, I thought that was going to Paul's. I'm like, it did. He just needed some stuff off it. I'm like scrambling to tell a story. But then it sat here, and he every day for probably a month he would ask me what we were doing with that.
Yeah, he wanted it.
Yeah.
So that one we're going to be building for Lizzie as a crawler. So Colt from Bleep and Jeep came out. He helped pull the motor, pull the wiring harness. Lizzie went out there to help do all that.
He told us what we needed from Samurai and stuff to make it work.
Yeah, Colt was a great resource on this. He says he's not a Samurai expert, but he knows more than the rest of us combined, and that was enough. Anyway, while this is going on, I'm starting to get worried because Ed is hitting pretty hard. He's not suspicious that we're restoring it. He just wants it back. Yeah. And so he broke his Rokon out and he started tinkering with it. And I helped him get it started. We got it started, but it needed a lot of work. And I'm looking at it. And Sean from Bikes and Beards came out here and he looked at it and he's like, that thing's super cool. I've never seen one of those. And then like that night, I'm like trying to go to sleep and this is just banging through my head. That's sweet. I've never seen one of those. Next morning, Sean, do you want to restore this thing? And he's like, heck yes, I do. I'm like, hey, Ed, Sean from Bikes and Beards, he's got a YouTube channel. He wants to restore your Rokon. And then all of a sudden, Ed's like, he had his Suzuki in this hand and he threw it on the ground and he picked up his Rokon. And that was everything. And I'm like, perfect.
We had to recruit Holly to haul it out there.
Yep, Holly was heading out there. She was headed out somewhere by DC. So we're like, hey, could you take this another 12 hours out of your way to Pennsylvania?
She was more than happy to do it.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Holly. and Walter. So we shipped it out there for Sean and Craig to go through. So then Ed starts pushing for the Rokon. When's the Rokon coming back? When's the Rokon coming back? And so I'm like, Ed, let's go out and check on him. He was not expecting them to go as extensively as they did, like go down every nut and bolt, rebuild it, restore all the pieces. We went out there, we hung out with Bleep and Jeep for a couple days, and then we drove up to Pennsylvania and hung out with Bikes and Beards. And Ed got to see it, and it's in a million pieces. Like the motor's just completely disassembled. And so Ed's like, oh, okay, this is going to take a while because they're doing the whole thing.
Yeah,
So
it was good that he saw that, because before that, he kept bringing it up. He's like, I don't know what's taking them so long. They should be pretty much done with it by now, don't you think?
And this whole time, this is buying time for Paul and Robbie to work on the Golden Nugget. So yeah, so this whole time that it's at Paul's, it's getting the drivetrain swapped, the axles built and swapped in it. It's getting bumper, winch. Ended up having to go with a donor body. The other one was just too far gone.
And well, Paul tried to incorporate as much as from the old one into the
every
new
piece
body as possible.
Every piece that was usable was used.
Yeah.
So and since Ed's very utilitarian and not sentimental about it, it was a win-win-win-win. After Paul got it basically done, he was just like fuel lines, brake lines away. The way the scheduling worked out and everything, it ended up going up to Robbie's to do, and Robbie completely disassembled it, did whatever needed to be powder coated, painted, whatever.
Went crazy on it.
Yeah, he went nuts. Robbie's a little bit like that. He's gonna do it perfect. So, and it's perfect. You can come look at it at the shop. It's perfect. So now things are getting closer. Ed's starting to remember that he's got this LJ20 out there at Paul's and
starts asking
questions about it. By this time, we're telling him it's still at Paul's, but it's actually at Robbie's. And then about the time it goes from Robbie's back to Paul's, Ed starts hammering us again. And we're like, oh, Paul got it running. It's not running good. We're having trouble with the oil injector, whatever. All the reasons that we're terrible people for lying. And I said, but it's up at Robbie's now. Somebody sent us a door, and he's going to try to see if he could replace that door. And Ed's like, that other door worked fine. So
he was getting pretty impatient at this point.
Yeah. And so now he's been without his Rokon, and the LJ20's gone. So he ends up with nothing to do, and Skeeter's going out to Paul's. And so Ed tags along.
Yeah,
but
Ed asking Skeeter, he's like, well, where are you going? And Skeeter's just like, oh, I'm going up to Paul's.
He's like, I'll ride up there with you.
Yeah.
I think Ed wanted to do some investigating. He says he wasn't, but he was.
Yeah, because he invited himself. Normally he'd be like, do you mind if I come along? But he's just like, I'll go up there with you.
Yeah. So Paul had to hide it in his house garage and take all sign of it. And luckily, we'd gone up like 2 days before that and gathered up all the spare parts and taken them to my house. And so the crime scene had been completely cleaned up, and there was not one single clue for Ed to pick up there. So now, as far as he knows, the Rokon is being shipped to Robbie's for paint, and his Golden Nuggets up there for paint. So things are starting to wind up. It's getting down. And remember, Ed's not like. It's not like Ed's feeling deprived. He's just curious what's taking so long to get a 2-stroke engine running.
Yeah.
And the Rokon kind of made sense to him. And we did actually have some shipping problems with the Rokon from Pennsylvania to Robbie's. So there were some real delays there. And it just happened to work out. They got finished within like hours of each other.
Yeah.
So we couldn't have planned it that perfectly, but that's the way it worked out. Also, I mean, a huge shout out to Paul. Huge shout out to Robbie, Craig, and Sean. What a lot of people don't realize is the amount of time and the crazy hours that these guys are doing this. Robbie's got a regular business that he works from like 9 to 5, and all the work he did on the Golden Nugget and the Rokon was done after hours. So almost every day for Robbie was like from 8 in the morning till like 1 or 2 the next morning.
He didn't sleep for 6 months.
Yeah, the whole time there's people telling him that he's milking it and that he's just trying to make this drag on, and he is just cranking every second of every day. Paul, the same way.
Well, yeah, and at the same time, Paul was trying to get his Toyota done to go to Easter Jeep Safari.
Oh yeah,
and all that stuff.
things come up. So you'll like work 8 hours on one project and then work 8 hours on another project. And because the way the videos drop, it looks like, oh, you're ignoring this project for 3 weeks. No, we've been working on both projects every day for the last 40 days.
Well, another thing Robbie had to deal with was he had my 4Runner and Holly's Jeep and the giveaway Jeep that he had to get done all before Moab.
Yeah. So these
that was right after he got.
And people misinterpret this too. Some people do. They're like, "Why do you guys give yourself arbitrary deadlines? We know it's just to like increase the drama. Our life is just like yours. It's complex and busy. There's a certain product that we have to put out a certain amount of times per week. So these deadlines are real. And then there's hard things that come up. Like we've got the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. It's 3 weeks away. I have to have both my rigs completely ready for that. Plus, we have to film wrecker builds. Plus, we have to film this. Plus, we have all the other regular things that we have to do.
Matt has countless meetings.
Plus, the recoveries keep coming in. So, and actually, my crew is here for about half of the recoveries that we do. So we get a lot of recoveries in the late evening after these guys leave, and then there's a lot of jobs on the weekends. So my schedule, like if I tell you how hectic Paul's schedule is or Robbie's schedule, I'm also telling you how hectic my schedule is. I enjoy it, not whining, not complaining one bit. Thank you for this opportunity. But if you see a little tiredness in my face, that's the reason. So now everything is done and we've got to make all of this come together. We've got to reveal this to Ed, and this is the really important part. And I'm so glad. I really wanted to convey this to all of you as you watch the unveiling. We had to be very conscientious of Ed, and like I said, I'm so glad that all of you caught that. There were a few that didn't understand why the reveal happened the way it did. Ed was our number one concern. He was our number one priority. I wanted this to be a good experience for Ed, and I was willing to sacrifice some pizzazz.
There's several things to it. Like you go up in the mountains and it's nice and cool. It was a little bit rainy, but if we would have done it down here, it would have been 105 degrees outside.
Right.
Because we had tossed around the idea of doing it just out at Sand Hollow.
Yeah. But we needed someplace private where people couldn't come up and kind of get in the way. So Ed struggles with hearing. He is legally deaf as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he has a hard time with high pitches. There's not very many women he can talk to.
Right.
Like even my voice isn't very low, but he has a hard time hearing me unless he hears your voice really well though. Like
Ed,
he can hear deep, he can't hear high pitch.
Yeah. And then when there's a lot of background noise, then it's really bad for him. So we set this up so it was really intimate. It was just going to be me, Jamie, Tucker, and Ed. So that's why the actual reveal when he saw it was so that way. And like I said, thank you for understanding why we did it that way instead of with a flash mob. Like a flash mob would have been amazing. It would have been, who knows? It would have been crazy. But Ed would not have enjoyed it. It would have startled and confused him. And so that's why we did it that way. And then when we brought it back up on top, that's where everybody was. And Ed wasn't expecting them. And Ed's trying, like, all this is kind of soaking in. And I know Ed really well. And I know a lot of you know Ed. You've been watching and you got a pretty good grip on what Ed's like. Ed was just ecstatic. He was shocked. He was still Ed and he was saying his little funny things. But he was really taken back. And it was very rewarding to be there while this was unfolding. We got up on top. We had that group up there. Everybody was really respectful. That's why you see only small groups of people going up to Ed at a time and everybody else hanging back, was so that they could actually communicate with Ed. And you could even see there's times where he couldn't hear. There was a little bit too much noise.
So it's kind of got to be one-on-one with him. You get too much background noise going on and like he can't hear anybody.
Yeah. For those of you that didn't understand why it was that way, hopefully that makes sense. And the rest of you that do understand, now you got confirmation. That's why we did it the way we did it.
It worked out really well. It was nice.
Let's explain this part too. So when we got down there and I showed Ed this yellow Jeep that was stuck. And so when he sat down and he saw the yellow through the trees, he didn't have a clear vision of it. He just said, it's right there.
Yeah, he's like, why are you being weird? It's right there.
Yeah, just go get it. And
it doesn't look stuck to me.
Yeah, it doesn't look stuck. And I told him, I said, Ed, I think I'm going to need your help on this. And he's like, I think you and Jamie can handle it. And I said, no, Ed, I'm really going to need your help. So he stood up to come help me. And when he saw it, he read Golden Nugget right across the top of the windshield. So That's what he was reading, and then
it hit him.
And he didn't see his Rokon yet. He was looking through 2 trees, and all he could see was a gold nugget. And then when he walked around that tree, he saw the Rokon, and that's when it like totally hit him. That's when he's like,
me.
that's when he was like, Robbie said that was up getting.
Yeah.
He thought it was still at $1 billion.
Everybody's lies just circling through his head.
Yeah, that was a neat moment. So now this is where we're at. We've got the golden nugget here. We've got the Rokon here. We got the trailer here. There's a few things that we need to do to kind of personalize them for Ed. He wants a rear bumper put on there because he just kind of wants to protect his.
He wants to adjust the seats so he can fit in there better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're going to adjust the pedals. I think we're going to move them closer to the firewall and up because that was everybody's having the problem with it. You've got to be able to hold your foot in an unnatural position to run.
And that was the reason he asked you to drive it up the hill.
Correct. Yeah, his foot wasn't quite fitting on the gas pedal, and I get it. Like by the time if I drive that thing for 5 minutes, I have to go do some yoga when I'm done.
So why don't you answer this question? Because some people might want to know: are they going to see a golden nugget on a recovery?
Oh yeah, we're gonna take it, shake it down. Yeah, you're gonna see it on the channel. We're gonna use it and do stuff with it. Ed is really excited. I didn't think he would take it down to his mine, but he wants to.
Does he?
Yeah, we should. That would be awesome.
The grand return.
Yeah, so we could do that this fall when we go do the secret mine mission. So anyway, that's that whole journey. That's where it started, and this is where we are so far. I'm assuming there's going to be a few more chapters.
It's been a fun journey thus far.
Ed's been having a blast showing it off.
Yeah, he sits out by the nugget as long as he can stand all day.
He'll tell you all about it. How Robbie Layton lied to him.
But if he ignores you, it's not because he's ignoring you. It's because he can't hear you.
You can tell that he can't hear you if
He'll
he gives
just
you
smile at you.
a thumbs up and a fist bump, and he'll say, yeah.
It's the single nod. That's all I get. He just gives me the.
Well, amazing. So once again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for the support. The fact that you watch these videos that we make it just means the world to all of us. It means the world to Ed. We just really appreciate it.
And the fact that some of you sent stuff to help with the project, like we couldn't have, like that sun visor, we wouldn't have been able to find another one.
Or the grill?
The grill, the plastic grill.
Lots of little parts. So when we started this project, there were a lot of companies that wanted to help. Bill Stein sent us shocks for it. Yukon sent us axles, gears, and lockers. Harbor Freight sent us a winch for it. Raceline sent us wheels. Milestar sent us tires. And I know that there were a lot of companies that supported Robbie and Fabrats as they were building this. So we'd like to thank all of the people that sponsored parts on this. And
so yeah, the effort put forth went way beyond just Matt, Robbie, Paul,
Sean,
the YouTubers.
Chad's Fab.
Yeah.
There's so many people involved in this. When you start listing them, it's super risky. But Chad's Fab, he was working long hours at Robbie's shop and worked long hours at Paul's shop. Can't believe we pulled it off. It's still crazy to think that we could keep this under wraps for this long, but we did it. We did it together. And as always, thanks for watching. What am I doing wrong?
Nothing. Just shaking it right. Just dip it in and pour it out. Dip it in and pour it out.